Good will be my audio. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings. Please let me know if you can hear me. I'm not sure. I'm using a laptop instead of my phone, so let me know if you can hear me. Just a comment would do. Probably would inform that you are able to hear me. So if you can hear me, just let me know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you can. So. Can anybody hear me? Hopefully, yes. To Madeline, stop asking me about pigs. Not sure if they. Oh, great! Thank you. I just got the messages. Thank you very much. So a couple of things. This conversation will be very different from every other. I think mostly we tend to shy away from some conversations that are very necessary in our society, and that is why the current regime takes us for granted and those things that are not really what we expected. But it will be important to look at governance in our country and do some comparative analysis. Oftentimes, you hear ministers in Adam Barrow's regime telling us what they've done for the Gambia as if they're doing us favors and the reason why they got to continue ruling our country, even though we had expected that the change of regime from Jammeh to Barrow was going to be a transition of 3 years, and then we have elections, and then have pure democracy where term limit 50 plus one, constitutional reforms, the TRRC, the Dane Commission, the Lands Commission, and a lot of commissions that were established by the regime would have brought us some fruition that the country would have got to a point that, by now, we would have a president who is thinking of, after a second term, would actually leave for, another president to come. But that has not been the case. What has been the case? We have somebody who thought he tricked us, lied to us, told us all kind of things that are just completely untrue, and turn around to say, I am not going anywhere, and he's going to stay for 15 years, 20 years or more. But often, what are the things that the ministers under his regime would tell you? Barrow has done a lot of good. He has given you democracy. Nobody gave Gambians democracy. The democracy that is in the Gambia is fought hardly by the Gambian people and not just an individual. Again, look at this individual. Where was Adam Barrow during the 22 years of Jammeh's regime? What has he done, and what was he known for? Because Barrow was never any prominent person known to be fighting against Jammeh's regime. We have seen the likes of Banka Mane, my personal uncle, who had fought tooth and nail for, against the Jammeh regime, lost everything probably, if not just his life, but had really nothing to do with this regime. That is why when you're fighting regimes, at some point you got to be careful. Sometimes you do so for the greater good of the country and not for personal interest. But now we have a regime built on deception, lies, fabrications, and just greed, for just selfish desire for self-perpetuation, and of course against the people's or the general will of the Gambian people. Now, this is something that we all got to consider. And then let's do a comparative analysis. They keep telling us that they're doing fantastically well in the country. Let's give a little comparison between Jammeh and Barrow. First, we must admit that Jammeh had killed a lot more people in the Gambia, abused human rights, and of course, denied Gambians their liberty. Nobody can deny that. That is a fact that existed. And where people are denied their liberty, then it's more or less like you've denied them everything. This was a great issue during the Jammeh regime, where people cannot freely speak their mind. People are arbitrarily arrested, go to work and they don't return home. People are killed within the government system. You want this job, it kills you. You attempt a coup, he kills you. So he was quite well known for torture and, of course, brutalizing humans. This is very true. Nobody can deny that. Put that aside. That is what I personally consider to be the biggest issues that Jammeh had committed, and nothing can go beyond that, because the worst cruelty that you can do to a human being is by killing them. The most cruel person to a human would be the person that probably could kill you. Beyond killing, nothing anybody can do. Now, if you compare that to the Barrow regime, Jammeh killed a lot of people. That does not mean that Barrow's regime did not kill anybody. This regime killed 3 people in Faraba Bantang whose only crime was to fight against injustice, fight against defending their land, fight against defending their women guarding, fight against somebody who want to, mortgage their livelihood. So this government is complicit and, of course, culpable in the killing of the Faraba Bantang folks who were only there to defend what they own. So nobody can tell us that Barrow never killed anybody or his regime never killed anybody. That's a blatant disregard to facts. Again, it's under this Barrow regime that they killed Aruna Jata in Fonyi somewhere, probably Jammeh's village or Kanila or wherever. It is under this regime that somebody on police custody died in police custody. Now, it is under this regime that young people in Gunjur who were defending against, fish meal factories were arrested and detained. And it is under this regime that people will kill ordinary Gambians, and of course they will facilitate their escape and run into, other countries. All of those things we are seeing. So the levels are very different, but doesn't mean that this government has a 0 and the other government has 100 or 200 or 300. But of course, Jammeh outshined, Barrow when it comes to killing people, which is quite a notorious act that this regime was very well known for. But the lies and deceptions in the Barrow regime are that Barrow has done more infrastructural development, or he has done more than, the PPP and the, APRC regime. That's a blatant lie. First, let's look at education. Say everything about Jammeh, but that's the guy that brought in equity and equality in our education system. Because prior to that, it was the sons and daughters of the privileged. Because the PPP regime deliberately and intentionally refused to build schools, refused to build a university, refused to ensure that every Gambian has equal opportunities and access to education, because they were going to keep their monopolies to make sure that other people are deprived of education, so that there won't be, that kind of competition for jobs in the country. And it was only the children of the ministers and the, folks, the elites who were going to Forabe College, who were going to the United States, who were going to, the United Kingdom to get education, but not the sons and daughters of the poor peasant Gambians. That's the fact. But he brought about equity in our country, that the sons and daughters of the poor got equal access like any other person to education. That is why today we have a lot of Gambians progressively doing well around the globe. People that went to the University of the Gambia, built by Yaya Jammeh, and of course inaugurated by Yaya Jammeh, are the people that are doing exceptionally well internationally. So what bini mo sida ka ko Barrow minke jang mo ko mo ke jang ya Jammeh mo ke jang PPP regime mo ke jang mangi tonyat alta Barrow sindila jang katambi sanji tanade ini mol kamben da sanji sabale bora sanji sabena ra sanji tay ko hani sa man kanyang ita mano iyalon ko mano han wo be ko ita bulaje. So education wise, Yahya Jammeh's regime was able to keep the Gambia College floating, in a sense that sons and daughters of the poor from the rural communities could come to Combo, get a place to stay within the college, get a stipend of over $390 is to keep yourself ongoing, and of course get free education at the Gambia College to be able to get a job later and support your family. But what did this regime do? They brought in fees into the Gambia College. Of course, you got to pay tens of thousands of dollars is to be able to go to college. Sons and daughters of the patient no longer can afford to go to college. They got to struggle. A lot of people are turned to become beggars, asking people for money to pay their tuitions because they want better lives for themselves. So what have they done better for the education sector? Telling people that, oh no, we build 10 classrooms every week. But of course, you've not made education affordable for people. What used to be free now is paid for. So what have you done better comparatively? Jammeh built the University of the Gambia, gave scholarships to thousands of people. At the end of every graduation, picked the best and sent them to study internationally. Sent a lot of people to Venezuela, sent a lot of people to Cuba, sent a lot of people to the United States and other places to get an education, to come back and develop the country. What has the Barrow regime done to boost, education in our country? Of course, they're building, new academic institutions here and there. But comparatively, has that outshined the Jammeh regime? No, they cannot, and they will never do. And all these lots you're hearing about the University of the Gambia Faraba Bantang projects are Jammeh's project, because these are, IDB projects that basically were signed and, of course, started implementing since the Jammeh days. So that cannot be Barrow's, gesture or probably his goodwill or his foresight. No. Now come to the health sector. Jammeh killed a lot of people. Terrible leadership, we can say. But again, which government, out of its negligence, corruption, and misappropriation of funds, and of course, poor procurement of pharmaceutical, products, led to the killing of over 70 children in our country? The dilapidated nature of our healthcare system today is worse than you can ever imagine. That even your animals you will not take some of them to some of our healthcare facilities under Adam Barrow's regime. That people who are giving millions for malaria programs would criminally connive to eat all that money just for them to actually find themselves in jail. So what has Barrow done in our health sector that was not done prior? Which major hospitals have they built and, of course, furnished and make sure that there is medicine and people get the necessary health care they need? Even with your money, you will not get, proper health care in the Gambia. What has Barrow done? What improvement has he done for the medical doctors to have specialized trainings overseas? Practically nothing. And these were things that the former regime, in as much as we can say all kind of bad, was doing to ensure that Gambians got that medical attention. Of course, travel overseas, get specialized skills, come back to work. Probably not for everybody, but a few people were actually, trained to become experts in their field. So you can never change those narratives. You're not doing that. Come to agriculture. You can say everything about Jammeh, but that guy was a champion agriculturist, and he was helping the Gambian people a lot in the agricultural sector. But what has the Barrow regime done? Jammeh had a lot of tractors that were distributed to farmers across the country. But what did Barrow do? One of his commissions actually seized all these tractors from Gambian farmers, sold it to themselves, the criminals within those commissions, and of course, deprive farmers of those, tractors, and the regime went on to buy donkeys and donate donkeys to Gambian farmers. This is what Barrow has reduced our agriculture to. And of course, got somebody who probably, I don't know what he studied, either nursing or whatever, they call him a doctor, nobody knows where he acquired a PhD, and all of a sudden, he is the agriculture minister who knows nothing about agriculture, not a subject area expert, nothing. And of course, even the technicians there, you can question what exactly they're doing. How far has our agriculture gone? Compared to the former regime, and now it's like agriculture has sinked beyond repair. So what has Barrow done in transforming our agricultural sector to something else? Absolutely nothing. And you come to the natural resource sector, where Jammeh had monopolized it. It has become a family business for him, where his own family, was involved in the mining here and there. But what did the Barrow regime do? From Jammeh's family to actually Barrow's political associates and, of course, funders of the NPP. Because we know that the people in the mining sector are major funders of the NPP. So it's from Jammeh's family to Barrow and his associates. What has changed? Nothing. But of course, it's this same regime that killed 2 police officers in their line of duty. So what is the difference when it comes to human rights records? Worse than one could imagine. Guilty as charged. both regimes. But if you tell us that Jammeh is that bad person, yet you can actually go and sell his cars for 5,000, tell us that all his flock of sheep, died, that none of them was sold, you can only tell that to, probably deaf and dumb. Even the deaf and dumb will not agree to that. So that tells that the regime is as cruel and criminal as anything you can ever imagine. Look at it from public sector corruption. You can say that Jammeh was the only corrupt person in this regime, and if you do any malpractice, it puts you in jail, or probably you suffer the consequences. But in Barrow's regime, corruption and public sector theft has been normalized and institutionalized. That is where people can actually take millions and then they probably would just go scot-free for nothing. And we have seen that. It is under this regime that came in the pretext that we are going to bring you a new constitution, F9. We are going to, get you, a TRRC. That I heard one of the ministers, Dr. Ismail Assisi, try to brag about that the recommendations were accepted. But what have you done about the recommendations? Nothing. And the president came out to tell us that Isafal was politicizing the commission, discrediting the commission he himself established, or the National Assembly established. The Jammeh Commission, a total failure. That's a disaster. So what has this government done? Established a commission to, of course, later establish a committee to actually investigate the commission. It's like investigating the investigator. That tells a lot about the regime, where even the president is complicit in the acquisition of the materials belonging to the former president. Again, before even the commission started, they looted most of the assets that were in the banks. They never even waited for the commission to start. Atol nyon sun suluto le nena maje dunia dulado. Atol fisiara ya jame te modal. Mo fada awaja mala katol mo jama keda ando amanke kal market kada alfana yakene. Bara niko banko la yuruwa ne nyaro tato le muneke mi alonko you did better than somebody else, probably nothing. So to say that Barrow has done so well for the Gambian people, the road infrastructure, you are not the person that built the bridges. You're not the person that actually, got the road from Brikama all the way to Basse. No. How long are the roads that you're making? And most of these OIC roads were more or less the Jammeh projects. So you actually met all of those, even though government is continuity. But what have you initiated and completed as a regime? That's what we did not lay hands on. Everything you initiated have all failed, including your death at Bad Lands Commission. But another go ya mulla bankol nindula kote ngol be table atol murun tatol ko tal ka talal da malu tema, like Yaya took all our lands, yes, but you seized those lands and of course shared it among your ministers. What is the difference? Infrastructurally, you will not do what the guy did. But to tell people that, oh yeah, we give you liberty, you can say whatever you want to say. But of course, you move the bag of rice from probably 900 to 2,500 and above. It is under this regime that a bag of cement would have moved from either 200 or 250 to 600 because of your monopolies that you want to just satisfy the people that are part of your political movement, who are major funders of your politics. You want to give them all those monopolies so that they can suffocate the ordinary Gambian people to actually ensure that your politics survives. This is the regime we have in place. So to say 10 years is not enough, that is basically what you never wanted to be enough, because you had always have that insatiable desire for power. You are power hungry, and all you ever wanted was to self-perpetuate. So what Adam Barrow la mansa kundaya munake Gambia mi yalon ko nena mankeje wala mi mukude mi yalon ko ni aji ya bogo bar ni mansa kundaya ku keja na min na manke, because OIC was a bigger risk for Jammeh to stay in power, because changing the Gambia into an Islamic state to entice the Arabs, because the West has given their back to him, to make sure that there are some developments in the Gambia, was a risky thing to take, because of course a set of people in our society will not believe in that, and they will be angry and they will vote against you, and that's exactly what happened. But of course you are now using those projects to self-perpetuate and tell people that, oh yeah, and to tell people that you are the lion killer or you brought about the change. That's not true. That's a blatant lie. The resilience and the resistance of the United Democratic Party for 22 years, where you were not even known, brought about a lot in the Gambia. The jailing of its membership in the country actually brought about a lot of things. And of course, Jammeh's continual and perpetual killing of Gambians like an eagle above chicks, and then nobody knows who is going to be picked tomorrow, was enough reason for people to resist and say, I might be the next victim, therefore I cannot continue to vote for this regime. But you cannot tell us that you've done way better than the Jammeh regime. No. Educationally, no. Health-wise, no. Infrastructurally, no. In terms of diplomacy and of course the relevance and importance of the Gambia around the globe, no. So what have you brought to the Gambia? Increased poverty, hardship, seizing people's lands, and of course sharing it among your ministers, destroying our ecosystems through mining operations of your political associates, and of course over exploitation of our marine resources. Security wise, killing of Gambians in their homes, in the streets, at work is not even stopping. So what have you done? Simply to disarm our army for 8 good years, simply because what? You want to keep economic for just one person to continue ruling, and you did not see 10 years to be enough. We will resist. We will resist, because if you want to turn yourself into a screw, we will become screwdrivers and unscrew ourselves. We will not let any other person cage this country again. Woku dan bulala bala hadama dum ka wasale. Allah tonya fo balia lan na tambira bamola banko kambar han wo be alkalta bolaje muna dum munyenti. You want to tell me the entire your political, nobody is saying don't put up a candidate, but it cannot be you. Respect the Gambian people. And to tell people that, oh, he has a legitimacy to run. Okay, you have a legitimacy to run. We the people, of course, power resides in the people, and the people would have that power to tell you that, no, we don't want you. You can force yourself to actually stay, but the people can also come out to say, we don't want you, enough is enough. And nobody can stop that. Nobody can stop that. Because if you can kill police officers, and of course everybody sitting down and watching you like nothing happens. And now what you people are trying to do is to entice the police, to try to cajole them. That is why for the first time you went to a police pass out ceremony. You've never been to one. Any police olta keno la kilindi karila man sakundale police olofa. Nim police o police betonya fole mimba ju so kono wala nyindi ko, they all know that your regime is complicit in the killing of the cops. So, ladies and gentlemen, we did not come here to stay too long. I listened to Ismail Assise telling that, Barrow give Gambians democracy, talking about TRRC. TRRC, me, along is a total failure. For 8 years, what have you done? Nothing. Alle commission on mimbelo ndi almurun dal keda sun sulu tolti. Alle fengo be sunya la na tambi sunya ro mi alon ko monena me mira la nyumbangoka. You've discredited our country to a point that you are even sending our young people to go and work in farms in Europe. Modern day slavery. This is the government that actually kind of sends its young folks, able, bodied men to go and work in plantations in Europe. It is this government that will actually come out and tell us that all the flock of sheep of the former president all died. That a car could be sold for $5,000. That you could kill 70 children and expect nothing to come out of it. The case has been in court for so long, it will never end, because they keep telling, go and negotiate with government. What are you going to negotiate with government? Alia wandi dingolo fatili mbalian in tajinitian in joyan in hasidialaka and Allah wasabalia. Oto Gambian ko lanyanta alona ko, it's time for a united opposition to ensure that this regime is ousted, because this regime is good for nothing. Namange tilimbalian in joyat. You know how many families in Gambia go to sleep without food? These folks don't care about you. And it's the same people that will jump and tell you that, oh no, we are going to vote for this regime. And then the advice to the opposition is that many a times, this regime feeds on deception, divide and rule, because in another fintila no mole ko nganyinna kali kukendol to me atina, you need to continue to vote for this regime. But all they keep telling you is, oh, we give you freedom. Freedom when you have nothing to eat. What kind of freedom is that? But all that they do is to come and play tribe, ethnic, division, and they will jump and say some rubbish to some ethnicities and expect the opposition to respond in that light, so that they can anger certain people in society, and then those people will say, oh, we are not going to vote for you here and there. What the opposition got to do is to focus on what you want to do and what you could do for the Gambian people, and not to follow these people in their negative ethnic rhetorics, because that is all they play for their politics, because their politics depends on it. And they think Gambians are not wise enough to understand or to account government on what it is doing and what it is not doing, and the bad things that they are doing in government, and to make sure that it is ousted. But of course, to focus our minds on tribal, divisions, which does not make any sense, because no ethnicity goes to a market to buy something for $1 and another buys it for $5. Collectively, we got to understand that the Gambia is the common denominator, and the state of our government is the worst that we can ever imagine. Not just the economy, not just the level of corruption, not just insecurity in the country. Only one man is secured in that country. That's the president, because you cannot have your next door neighbor, in your state house controlling everything in our country, including our intelligence. Wala neka sojarol je kata mola duwol fa ka duwol ko kuntu kata ka manati malla ala la buaya man tambi wala. These rituals and all this nonsense is just like somebody went and killed a hippo and brought it to the seat of presidency for the president to stand and say, we are donating a hippo to you. These people don't even care about the well-being of our environment and, of course, wildlife. All I know, they're getting crocodiles and start butchering them for meat because probably they're hungry. So before you support this regime, think and think twice. For some of you who think everything is about your ethnic identity does not put any food on anybody's table. The longer this regime stays, the worse off our country will become. We are not respected internationally. We are not just anywhere, because we have one of the worst presidents ever that anybody can imagine. We cannot continue to settle for the lust. We cannot continue to settle for less. And then this is a fight we all ready to, because, when people are silent and they're doing nothing, don't call them into politics, because the fact of the matter is that you cannot kill 2 police officers and then you jail people who did you no wrong. And then every other day you speak to Ami Bojang's children, you realize the anger and the animosity, and of course, how down these people are, simply because even if they go to school and parents are called to come, these children don't see their parents. That the little children are scattered all over. Some are gone to Bruford, some are in Yundum, some are elsewhere. That you have scattered somebody's family out of your own wickedness and evil doings. Hey, alaman femfo moy, alaman ratol damaide. Dombe sila sonya be sabat la nyimbango kanne. Alaman sakunda mahani tus la nafa Gambian kole. And that is very well known to every Gambian, because the commissions have exposed that this government is the worst government that probably the Gambia ever heard. And compared to Jammeh, of course, human rights was a bigger issue, and then so there is no way we would compare you to the former regime. But when it comes to development and other issues pertaining to governance, you cannot beat your chest for anything, because you did nothing better than the regime. So we don't intend to stay here too long, but of course periodically we will continue to have these conversations, because this regime, we're calling on every sound-minded Gambian who thinks about the progress of this country to know that 10 years should be enough for anybody. 10 years should be enough for any president. And then to say that this is what our constitution says. But look at it again. This regime told us that Jammeh was bad. Of course, Solo Sandeng and other people died for what? Electoral reforms. But this regime, after 8 years, came back to bring back those laws that Jammeh imposed on us. And those same laws, like you have to pay $1 million to become, presidential candidate. And these were the things that we were fighting for in 2015, 16. And then this is why some people died for that change to come to Gambia. But of course, this regime has backtracked all the way back there and make sure that they brought back those laws simply because Barrow want to self-perpetuate. It's high time that we all collaborate collectively to fight this regime, and not just in a way to say that, oh no, yalon luwa kote. Itolle nyanta nunko luwa la falinka luwa kutulu dundi bare itolle balanta luwa kutulu dundi ola, because ilafita mwina la puli itolle damale tara sirinje ko itolle barakatan tolti. Kamurun ka luwal dundi ka foko ni momo yetolo mansa kunda do kulalo neng isi sorong baren tolmi yalon ko do balo mantra do ko la mansa kunda tolmi ka mansa kunda tombo ni toli en tol bale neng kuta bola woto. Ndeysaan. Kulako on 2016, you will never believe it. Kondok, let's put our differences aside and see that our country is sinking, and it becomes divine that it is our collective responsibility to rescue that country from this clueless regime. Because Nyinamandra Fenna Naman ke Fangolu Nafa, at the expense of the masses, because this government is doing nothing for the masses if not to kill children, and of course come back and say, and not even to apologize for it. Look at the parents whose children died. To this day, they cannot even get justice. Imagine wearing your police uniform to go to work and they kill you for nothing simply because of their political desires. Imagine millions and millions of aid money coming into Gambia and just a few people to put it in their pockets. Imagine somebody telling you you will move from buying cement from 200 to 600 within this short space of time. That they said they will bring a bag of rice to 700, 800, 900. Probably they're mistaking that for a bag of cement. We can bring about that change through a united opposition front. All-inclusive government is what Gambia needs, not a single opposition government, whatever. Until we come together to understand that we will stand to ensure that our democracy is defended, that no person rules this country beyond 10 years. The constitution that they keep failing, that we will ensure that there is a constitution come after 2026, that this country will actually be put on the right footing, and of course honesty and honesty will be instituted, and of course corruption will completely be a thing of the past in our country. But even corruption is aided and abetted by society. If you have a position in government, your entire either family and even society thinks that they can all fold their hands and you're going to give them money when your salary cannot even settle your personal bills. These are the things we do in our society every evening. Because you're a director, people would come asking. They force you to go and steal what does not belong to you. Yeta tubabu du wonyama mosi fa bese kuma nkete itolo malo ngeka doko la tubabu amanga ko iteka mbeso. It's just for people out there. Nobody plucks money from trees in offices or in the West. So what a society kind of aids and of course plays a catalytic role in aiding and abetting corruption in our society. Alanga katano kato dorona koiran. Wala baraka badingol.